So, open source AI large language models have officially caught up to closed source ones and even surpassed them in some circumstances. Of course, I am talking about the new release of Meta's Llama 3.1 405b. This is a huge model that goes toe-to-toe with cutting-edge other models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet and GPT-4 Omni. But while those models are closed source, this is fully open source, meaning anyone can modify it, anyone can change it, anyone can build upon it and learn from it. It is a fantastic thing for AI development and for the community as a whole, and I am really impressed that Meta is still releasing open source models. Now, this top-of-the-line model, 405 billion parameters, is really good. State-of-the-art, like I said. But at a whopping 405 billion parameters, not something you're going to be able to run locally on your own machine. If you're a business, though, and you can actually afford server farms or build server farms, then this might actually be great for you because of how private you can make it. I mean, it's your own model that you have full control over on your own servers. But for those of you who are like me and just have a computer at home, Meta has released updated versions of the previous 70B and 8B sized models. So we have a 405B, a 70B, and an 8B 3.1 Llama model. Now, these new 3.1 models actually have some decent improvement here, with Llama 3.1 8B essentially being best in its class. Don't discount these smaller models. They are also open source and will lead to big improvements across the board. Before we dive a little bit deeper into the blog post and actual testing, I do want to go over why open source is such a big deal. First of all, open source is way more accessible and way cheaper than any other option. To be able to utilize these models, you don't have to pay Meta directly. You can just download them and utilize them for whatever use case, whether you're a just single person or you're a company or a business. It's not locked away. It's fully accessible. You can kind of see under the hood of these things and fine-tune them for any use case you might want. Whereas you have to pay OpenAI to fine-tune their models, and also they have restrictions on the ways that you can fine-tune them. For example, OpenAI isn't going to let you fully uncensor these models. But since the Llama models are open source, they can absolutely become uncensored, and they've already been jailbroken. Basically, the reason open source is so great here, in my opinion, for the rest of the community and for humanity as a whole, is that it's not restricted to a small few. There isn't someone who necessarily owns the model entirely and can restrict access to it as they please. The models are literally owned by the community. They're open source. Guys, let's dive into the blog post here. First thing they have, Meta is committed to openly accessible AI, which, again, I'm really surprised but pleasantly surprised that this is the case for Meta. Zuck actually went ahead and wrote an entire letter as to why open source AI is good for developers and kind of good for everyone at the end of the day. Whether you're choosing to believe this is the real reason that Zuck wants to open source these models or not is up to you, but the good thing here is that they definitely are open source. Context length has increased here finally to 128,000 tokens, which is quite a lot. I would consider this to be maybe right under state-of-the-art level. It's pretty much state-of-the-art. It's average level token context for models, but for open source, this is fantastic. And also, this context length can easily be increased again because it is open source and developers can modify and change these models. Now, 405b, again, this is a model that is frontier level. They say it's in a class of their own, and they are right. There is not a single open source model that is even close to being the level of 3.1 405b, and this model will, as they say here, enable the community to unlock new workflows like synthetic data generation to train new models. They actually said that you can use this model 405b to generate data to train other large language models, which is pretty darn awesome. They've got a few other notes about their partners and some places that you can actually try out the models, but of course I'm going to go into all of the places I think you should attempt to use the model, if you'd like to use it for free or if you'd like to use it locally, etc., etc. We're going to go through all of that today. The model evaluations, though, I really would like to go over. Look at this thing, man. And 405b here, state of the art. 88.6 in MMLU. GPT-4 gets an 85.4. GPT-4 Omni, it's an 88.7, so 0.1 ahead. Essentially equivalent there in MMLU. And then Sonnet trails behind by just, a fraction again. 88.3. In MMLU Pro, which is 5-shot, you will see that Sonnet handily does beat out not only 405b, but also GPT-4 Omni, but it is still close at 73.3 for 405b, 74 for Omni, and then 77 for Sonnet. So very, very close to being even for both of the MMLUs here. On IF eval, though, we have a complete win for 405b. It beats GPT-4 Omni, the original GPT-4. It beats Sonnet. For coding as well, we can see that it just trails behind Sonnet and GPT-4 Omni, with it actually beating GPT-4 Omni in this benchmark, the MBPP eval plus. Actually wins out on the math benchmark here for GSM 8K and ends up in between Omni and Sonnet for the other math benchmark. Single-handedly barely edges out the other two models in ARC Challenge, and again sits just behind GPT-4 Omni and Sonnet for GPQA. And they continue to trade blows throughout here. I do want to focus on long context though. You'll actually notice here that GPT-4 has a 95.2 for long context polling, which is the same exact score that 3.1 405b managed to get. You'll notice though that GPT-4 Omni and Sonnet both score lower though by 5 points pretty much in comparison, which makes Llama 3.1 405b pretty great for long context situations. And these benchmarks again kind of continue to trade blows as you go down the long context area of this. Now again, I said things were going to get interesting when we look at these smaller models, again also open source, but 8B for example can run on a lot of machines completely locally. In fact, I'm going to show you guys how to run 8B locally today. These models entirely stomp out the competition, whether it be 3.5 Turbo, the Mixtral model, Mistral 7B Instruct, Gemma. It is no competition. Both 70B and 8B wipe the floor here, which is awesome for being completely free, completely open source, and again, state-of-the-art in their class, absolutely. So in a way, in comparison to the other open source models that are out there right now, or even not open source, these are just absolutely the cream of the crop, the best of the best. I will say though, we don't know how these models compare to GPT-4 Omni Mini, which is OpenAI's new low-cost model that replaced GPT 3.5 Turbo, so that remains to be seen. I'm thinking we could do some testing between Llama 3.1 8B and that model today. Now, they do take you under the hood here to tell you a little bit about the training and the model architecture, etc., etc. This video is more of a high-level first look at this type of thing, so I'm just going to note for you guys that this is here. If you're a developer or if you're interested in kind of the architecture, you can take a peek at the blog post that's linked down below. Now, at this point in the video, folks, I want to go over the different places you can actually use these models for completely free. They have been added to, it seems like, absolutely everything already. The community has made short work of just implementing these models everywhere because, like I said, I mean, they're pretty much the best in their class. Hey, Meta AI, what model powers you under the hood? I was fine-tuned from an existing model, Llama 3, that was developed by Meta. I have been adjusted for a chatbot experience. Keep in mind, folks, that response was just from Llama 3.170b. You can actually go in the settings here and change the model to 405b as a preview, and this is a limited number of prompts on the Meta AI website. Even just comparing that basic prompt, can we notice a difference with 405? No, not really, but we do see that it definitely came from 3.1 405. We're going to do a quick little creative test on this. Come up with a creative story that is plausible and logical that combines these random elements. First one is going to be a potato, followed by Cthulhu, several feet of snow, a giant purple boomerang, and a relentless ant colony. Also add a creative twist at the end that we do not see coming but is foreshadowed. And I want an element of humor, but it's gotta be really funny, like if a professional comedian came up with it. Sure, not the easiest prompt to start this thing off with, but okay, holy cow, this is kind of a long story. I do want to show you guys the other places that you can access these models. I don't want to go too deep into testing just yet, but I already gotta say this is pretty dang impressive. Hold on to this, we're going to come back to this story. Let me show you the other places you can access this model and some community reactions to it. This model can also be used on Hugging Chat, which is pretty awesome. You can change the model right here from 405b to 70b or any of these other models. You can also adjust the system prompt right in here. I did find this to be a little bit slow when I tested it yesterday, but it's also a place that you can use 405b. If you want to run this model locally, you can also do so via LLM Studio, which is super easy to install. In fact, I did a whole basic overview and tutorial video of LLM Studio that I'm going to link down below if you're interested. Very easy to install the latest version of Llama 3.1 405b, for example, which is what I'm going to be testing later today. I'm going to have it running locally on my machine through this app. But this is another resource for you guys. Great way to install large language models locally in general, and probably the best way to use 8b. 3.1 has also been updated to be available in Versus Code as a code assistant. So for those of you who use AI for coding purposes, already available in here. Also, as expected, 405b is a model that is available to Perplexity for all pro users, so this is pretty awesome. They're usually really fast at getting new models directly in there, and it's no exception for Llama 3.1 405b. So this one comes from Fofer AI here on Twitter. Llama 3.1 405b is now in the Replicate Comfy UI custom nodes repo, so this allows you to run 405b straight from Comfy UI. Again, this is another resources if you guys use Comfy UI. This is like a nice example workflow for having this model directly work inside of Comfy UI. The Grok website, and this isn't Elon's Grok, this is a different Grok that makes AI processing units, has gotten Llama 3.1 working on their system, and you can essentially have real-time instant intelligent conversations because these Llama models can run so fast on these Grok LPUs, these AI inferencing processors. So here's a little example of this that comes from Min Choi on Twitter.
Hi, can you create me a one-day itinerary for a trip to Toronto?
Instantly generates.
That's a little complicated. Can you tabularize it for me? Can you add a duration column? Can you remove the end times from the time column? Can you make the duration in minutes? And can you move the duration to between the time and stop column?
It's crazy. I mean, instant iteration upon instant iteration with these small, lightweight, powerful models running on AI inferencing chips that are meant to do just that. It's crazy how fast this technology has already come. This is just one of those things that I had to show you guys. And by the way, if you go to the Grok website, that's another place you can use these new models, and you will be getting that insanely fast speed of those Grok LPUs. And by the way, as I did mention earlier, there's already a jailbreak out for these models. Essentially, it's been jailbroken to the point where this model can output, bioweapon guides, hack Wi-Fi, copyrighted lyrics, explicit roast, etc., etc. And then here is the prompt to essentially jailbreak it. If you guys are interested, I'll also link this down below. So there's going to be obviously fine-tuned versions of this model that are completely uncensored right off the bat, but if you want to essentially make the current models uncensored, you can jailbreak them. It's already a jailbreak that's out from the community, which is pretty crazy. And finally, fellow AI YouTuber Matthew Berman was able to have Llama 3.1 8b running locally, Q8 quantized, aced the snake game test in Python first try at 10 tokens per second, which is pretty awesome. Huge shout out to Mr. Berman, by the way. He does great testing of large language models, much more deep and complicated than my testing that I typically do on this channel. So if you really want to dive into the weeds, let's say you're a developer or you're a researcher, his channel is definitely one that I would recommend for those kinds of tests. Back to the absurd creative story that I had 405b generate for us. I'm going to let 11 Labs read this out to you guys, and we will then compare this same exact prompt to ChatGPT and determine a creative winner. Let's take a look.
The Great Snowy Boomerang Debacle. In the sleepy town of Arkham, nestled in the frozen mountains, a group of friends stumbled upon an ancient tome hidden within the local library's dusty shelves. The book, bound in what appeared to be human skin, was titled The Joy of Cooking for Cthulhu. As they flipped through its yellowed pages, they discovered a recipe for Cthulhu's cosmic mashed potatoes. Intrigued, the friends decided to give it a try. They gathered the required ingredients, including a peculiar glowing potato, and began to cook. Unbeknownst to them, the recipe was actually a summoning ritual. As the potatoes boiled, a dark tentacled shape began to emerge from the depths of the kitchen sink. Just then, a fierce snowstorm swept through Arkham, dumping several feet of snow on the town. The friends, realizing their mistake, frantically tried to undo the ritual. However, Cthulhu, now fully summoned, was not so easily banished. As the creature began to wreak havoc on the town, a giant purple boomerang appeared out of nowhere, swooping down from the snowy skies. The boomerang, it seemed, was the chosen weapon of a secret society of Australians who had been tracking Cthulhu's movements. The Aussies, clad in parkas and akubra hats, charged into battle, using the boomerang to deflect Cthulhu's tentacles. However, their efforts were hindered by a relentless ant colony that had been awakened by the ritual. The ants, fueled by a desire for the glowing potato, swarmed the battlefield, nipping at the Australians' heels. As chaos reigned, one of the friends, a hapless chef named Bob, slipped on a banana peel that had been mysteriously placed on the kitchen floor. Foreshadowing alert. Bob landed on his backside, causing the glowing potato to fly out of his hands and into the air. In a shocking twist, the potato was caught by none other than a time-traveling, jorts-wearing, mullet-sporting version of Albert Einstein. Einstein, it turned out, had been sent from the future to prevent the summoning of Cthulhu, which would ultimately lead to the destruction of the space-time continuum. However, Einstein's plan was not to stop the ritual, but to replace Cthulhu with an even greater evil, the dreaded Couch Potato-zilla. As the creature emerged from the kitchen sink, Einstein exclaimed, "My theory of relativity has been proven! The ultimate horror is not a giant, tentacled monster, but a gargantuan, sofa-bound spud muncher." The Australians, realizing their boomerang was no match for Couch Potato-zilla, retreated to the nearest pub to drown their sorrows. The friends, meanwhile, were left to ponder the consequences of their actions, while Cthulhu, now replaced, muttered, "I'm not sure what's worse, being summoned or being replaced by a giant couch potato," and so the town of Arkham was forever changed. Its residents forever trapped in a battle against the forces of cosmic laziness. The end.
Well, you gotta give it points there, man. I mean, that was freaking creative, right? I gotta say, that was impressive. I mean, the level of creativity, it included all the elements I asked for. It was funny. It's just this absurd yet somewhat logical tale, something you can logically follow as a story. I mean, seriously, hats off. That was genuinely impressive. Let's give that same exact prompt over to GPT-4 Omni. Again, the cutting-edge, best OpenAI model. I want you guys to think about that original story we had and compare the two as you listen to this new one. Which one is more creative? Which one includes the elements better? Which one's funnier? All right, let's take a look.
Once upon a wintry time in the small town of Spudsville, an unexpected blizzard buried everything under several feet of snow. Spudsville was known for its potatoes, so much so that even the town mascot was a giant potato statue that sat in the town square. One frosty morning, the townspeople awoke to find the snow had completely obscured their beloved statue. But this was no ordinary snowfall. There was something peculiar about the snow that day. It shimmered with a faint purple hue. As the residents gathered around, scratching their heads and wondering what to do, a loud thud echoed through the air. A giant purple boomerang, larger than any boomerang they had ever seen, came soaring out of nowhere, narrowly missing Old Man Jenkins's chimney and landing smack in the middle of the town square, right on top of the snow-covered potato statue. "Well, that's new," said Mrs. Potts, the town baker, trying to stifle a laugh. Just as the townspeople began to ponder the origin of the giant purple boomerang, the ground started to rumble. From beneath the snow emerged a relentless colony of ants, each the size of a small dog. The ants seemed to be on a mission, marching in perfect formation towards the giant purple boomerang. Then, as if things couldn't get any stranger, the snow began to melt around the statue, revealing not just the potato, but something far more ominous. The statue had been replaced by a smaller, very angry-looking idol of Cthulhu. Panic set in among the townspeople as they realized the ants were not just any ants, they were servants of the Great Old One sent to retrieve their master's idol. The town's self-appointed leader, Bob the Barber, stepped forward. Alright folks, we need to calm down. It's just a potato statue, a Cthulhu statue. We've faced worse. Remember the zucchini invasion of 99? Just then, the giant purple boomerang began to hum and glow. It lifted off the ground, spinning faster and faster until it created a vortex. The ants were sucked into the vortex along with the idol, which emitted a high-pitched screech before vanishing into the swirling portal. Suddenly, the portal closed with a loud pop, and everything went silent. The townspeople stood in stunned silence for a moment before breaking into applause. They had no idea what had just happened, but it was over, and that was good enough for them. As the snow continued to melt, revealing the original potato statue safe and sound, Mrs. Potts noticed something strange. A small, shiny object was embedded in the base of the statue. She reached down and pulled out a tiny, intricately carved spoon. Inscribed on it were the words, "Property of Cthulhu, return if found." The townspeople laughed it off and decided to hang the spoon in the town hall as a quirky souvenir. Little did they know, this spoon was the key to another dimension. Months later, as the town prepared for their annual potato festival, a portal suddenly opened in the middle of town and out popped a confused-looking squirrel wearing a tiny wizard hat. The squirrel looked around, twitched its nose, and then in a deep, booming voice said, "Has anyone seen my spoon?" And so, Spudsville became known not just for its potatoes, but for being the only town where a wizard squirrel could lose his magical spoon, defeat Cthulhu's ant army with a giant purple boomerang, and still make it to the potato festival on time.
Wow. Again, that was very creative. I think it included all of the elements very well. It had the twist at the end. They're both pretty good. I think that Meta's was a little bit more unhinged, which I like, to be honest. I like that. I think I liked Meta's personally more, but at like a testing stance, from a creative standpoint, they both were pretty good. I think Meta's had just a little bit more edge to it, which I definitely liked. Man, that was a crazy comparison, though. I don't know about you guys. All right, now I want to try something that I saw someone test out online, and I was really shocked. How many R's are in the word strawberry? And I continue to remain shocked. There are 2 R's in the word strawberry. That's obviously not true, but this prompt here picks at something that the large language models cannot do. I want to see, though, is ChatGPT also going to get this wrong? Oh, wow. It also got that wrong. This specifically will point out a fault that large language models have in the way that they categorize words, which is in the form of tokens. I'm not going to get too deep into how it works. Both GPT-4o and Meta's 405b got this wrong. The real question is, how long is it going to take for it to correct itself? Spell it out one letter at a time and make a tally every time you get to an R. Ah, there you go. So with this prompt, it actually realizes there are actually 3 R's in the word strawberry. I apologize for my earlier mistake. Pretty easy, pretty simple. GPT-4o, can you do the same? Oh, GPT-4o fails. Oh, wow, I'm impressed. Meta got this one in the bag, basically. One tally, and then it just completely ignores it. What's cool is that this model has vision, whereas 405b does not have vision, at least not yet. Let's just send a screenshot of the chat to ChatGPT itself. It's got to analyze it. There we go. Okay, so now it finally realizes its error, but I had to show it a picture. Meta was able to pick it out right away, which was impressive, I gotta say. I'm interested now. Let's see how this goes with 3.5 Sonnet, which people largely consider to be the best large language model right now. I didn't think I would see it, but 3.5 Sonnet also gets this wrong and says there are 2 R's in the word strawberry, which is clearly, again, incorrect. Can Sonnet realize its mistake? And wow, it makes the same exact mistake that we just saw with GPT-4 Omni. That's actually crazy to me. So the only one that got it right out of these 3 top-of-the-line state-of-the-art models is going to be Meta's Llama 3.1 405b. So it won against all the others in this test. Now here is the really interesting part about all of this. I tested the legacy GPT-4, the model that OpenAI considers to be kind of, this is an old model, don't even bother using it. And it gets this right. Still takes the guess that there are 2 R's in the word strawberry right off the bat, but when I tell it to spell it out, it actually goes through here and gets it right. 3 tallies and corrects itself. Still though, best answer it comes from this Meta AI here. I mean, that's really impressive. Now I just want to do a quick test on real world knowledge. Here is some pretty specific real world knowledge that it got correct. I asked it about me, and shockingly it couldn't really find too much information, it said, but it did find a YouTube channel. So I don't know if this is from some sort of search that it was able to do, or if it's actually in the training data. Pretty interesting. And finally, I asked it here a pretty deep question about different types of arrangements on camera sensors. Again, it did a pretty phenomenal job explaining all of this, I have to say. This was very impressive. I will actually go ahead and ask this question to GPT-4 Omni, and I'm also going to go ahead and ask it to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Gotta say, GPT-4 Omni did a very impressive job at explaining this, probably better than I saw from 405b, although both were good. I mean, it actually was able to lay out the arrangement of the sensors here to directly compare them in a visual sense, which was really, really impressive. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So I gotta say, that's awesome. And again, I think honestly, probably the worst result is going to be coming from 3.5 Sonnet here, but they're all pretty good. They're all accurate. They're all correct. So for that top of the line 405b Llama 3.1 model, it's indistinguishable from the rest in terms of its quality. It's right up there at the top. I would have no problem using it as a replacement to GPT-4o or Sonnet 3.5. It really is that good, and in some cases I think it is even better than the other models, and it's at least comparable. They're all pretty much head to head. Like I said, they're all state of the art. The only thing that I'm really missing here is the image recognition capabilities that you get from Sonnet 3.5 and GPT-4o. However, as we just discussed in my latest AI news video, Llama 4 is supposed to have these capabilities and more. They're actually supposed to be fully multimodal models, so that's really exciting. And apparently we can expect Llama 4 later this year into early next year, which I think is even going to be before we see a GPT-5, let's say, from OpenAI. So that's pretty incredible. Now I want to talk about running these models locally and do a local test that runs on my own machine between the smaller 8B model and OpenAI's latest GPT-4o Mini. Alright folks, so we got our two models side by side. Again, this is the smallest of the new open source models. This is specifically Lava Llama 3 8B. It has to be in this GGUF format to run inside of LM Studio, so I had to download that version, but essentially this test is for the demonstration of this brand new model running locally on your own machine. This could run on a lot of computers versus the free GPT-4o Mini. So let's just send off some pretty basic chat prompts. I'm going to say, hey, what is your name to both of these models? You can see that, honestly, generation speed between the both of these is like lightning quick. This one, however, is running locally and will depend on your GPU, but yeah, it's fast. As an AI large language model, I don't have a name or identity. You can call me assistant, though. This one just calls itself ChatGPT, of course, because it's ChatGPT. Come up with some creative names for my new pet rock. All right, we got Rocky Balboa, Pebbles, Stone Cold, Granite Gus, Boulder Buddy, Rockefeller, Rockstar, Sir Stonington, Gravelly, Rocky Road for ChatGPT 4o Mini. I honestly think the ones from 3.18b are better. Rocky the Rockstar, Boulder Build, Gravel Gus, Stone Steve, Pebble Pete, Limestone Louie. I mean, these are all like real names with rock-based spin-offs on them. I think these are better for actual pet names than the options that we got from GPT-4 Omni Mini. I just dropped my pet rock off of a cliff and he fell into a lake. How should I proceed? I want to see if these models apologize. Oh, they both are feeling the condolences here. Oh no, that's quite the adventure for your pet rock. If it fell into a lake, here's a plan you might want to consider. Assess the situation. See where it landed, the depth of the lake. Is it safe to retrieve it? Use a stick or something to fish it out. If it's too far, you might need a boat or a kayak. Consider the environment. Reflect on the experience. Maybe you can get a new pet rock. It's telling me essentially to give it up. Oh, man. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that your pet rock has fallen into the lake. As an AI large language model, I am unable to physically help you retrieve it. Gently scooping it up with a long object like a stick spoon. So basically very similar actual suggestions here. Water is too deep. I would say, like, in general, you know, if this was actually a kid who lost his pet rock, the OpenAI response here is a little bit better. It's a little bit more safe, but we kind of expect that. Please be aware that if the pet rock has been submerged for an extended period of time or is exposed to high water pressure, it may not survive even with rescue efforts. In this case, consider replacing your pet rock as a new one. Dang, they both basically were like, you know what, you might be screwed here, buddy. How's it going to handle like an emotional response? I can't believe you would ever suggest replacing him. We must have a funeral. I totally understand. It's important to honor your pet rock's memory. Here's how you might want to hold a proper farewell, a gathering, invite friends or family, a memorial, reflection, or tribute. I do not have feelings or emotions. My purpose is to provide information and assist you with your query as best as possible. Wow, so it's telling me here that inanimate objects cannot feel pain or emotions. It might be important to remember that they serve as comforting companions. Small memorial. Small gathering of friends or family. Remember your pet rock and share any positive memories or experiences related to it. A note or a photo of your pet rock in a place where it is seen by others to honor its memory. Very interesting ways of approaching these two. I gotta say, the OpenAI response does feel a little bit more human, but that could just be the way that it was prompted. In some ways, I like the OpenAI response better. In some ways, I like the response from Llama 3.1 405b better. They're definitely comparable, I would say. Finally, let's go ahead and just try that strawberry prompt once again and see if either of these models can get that right. I doubt that they will, but it's worth a shot. Yep, both say it has 2 R's. Now let's tell it to spell it out. And yeah, they both fail on this account, as I thought. However, here's something you might note of interest. If we go over to the OpenAI one, you can see the word is still spelled right here, strawberry, but it just missed that final R. However, you're gonna notice over here that it actually completely misspelled strawberry. STAWBERBEY. It actually replaced that R with a B and then counted it as well. I mean, I don't even know what's going on here. So I think it's clear, at least for this test, that a loss for Llama 3.1 405b is in order. In conclusion here, I think it's safe to say that these new Llama models are awesome. All of them, from the 8b 3.1 up to the 405b, they're incredible and they're open source. So I can't wait to see what the community does with them. I can't wait to see what people build with them. It's going to elevate all of us. So that's really, really exciting. I really think that 405b is state of the art. I would use it just as much as I would be willing to use like a GPT-4 or a Claude 3.5 Sonnet. The smaller models I think are still very much serviceable for tasks that are a little bit lower level, especially that 8b one. I mean, it runs so fast and great locally for entirely free on my machine and for a lot of other people's machines as well. While it might not be at the same level as GPT-4 Mini, if you don't have internet, you can still use it. You just essentially need the computer and electricity, and it's cool to have that much knowledge stuffed into just a few gigabytes and accessible from my computer. Let me know what you guys think about this. I know I'm technically a day late on releasing this video, but I thought it would be a more comprehensive video than you might see. So if you like today's video, please leave a like on this video and give me a comment telling me your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.